and the confirmation of what should be done. I agree very much, especially with the previous speakers, that gaps have been identified, and the job, especially today, basically about bridging the gaps. That should be done at the global level, at the regional level, and at the local level. I encourage you to please attend the events that we are supporting, especially on the launching of the report by Vera Songwe and Extern on identifying the gaps of finance for adaptation and mitigation. And on that report, I just like to highlight the following, that the gap is $2.4 trillion per annum for developing economies and emerging markets. And this is excluding China. And the issue here that we need not just the incremental increases of finance, but substantive increase. What is required is for domestic resource mobilization is to increase from the current 1.4 trillion to 2.4 trillion. So this is an increase of $1 trillion a year. Hard, especially with what was mentioned in many economies of the global south suffering from debt service challenges. External financing needs to be increased by roughly $800 billion. The breakdown of that the multilateral development banks, the like of the World Bank, African Development Bank, Asian Development Bank, needs really to increase their finances from their averages of 80 to 100 billion a year to around 220 billion more in order to reach the target of 300 billion. Private sector finance is not flowing sufficiently to developing economies and emerging markets when it comes to climate action, especially when it comes to adaptation. Their share is no more than 3% of total, and that needs to change by increasing the private sector by 4 times the contribution in terms of investments. And then bilateral finance need to be doubled. So ambitious targets. We are seeing some interesting developments. Let me commend the initiative by just one country, the UAE, the host, who managed to mobilize $30 billion, aiming for 250 billion with funding for facilitation with concessional support. This is just an initiative of one country. Other countries can do similar investment funds with private sector participation, with leveraging the private sector as a priority. And been emphasizing the issue of that climate finance is insufficient, inefficient, and unfair. And the numbers that I just mentioned are basically confirming the insufficiency. Bridging will be through many initiatives, multiples of initiatives like the one that we found in the second day of the meetings here through the Altera. The other thing is basically the changes required in the models of finance by the MDBs and specialized funds. I was very happy to see the successful replenishment of the Green Climate Fund, but as a friend of the fund, a facilitator of its support for low-income and developing economies at large, and we have seen the unprecedented pledges reaching $12.475 billion, but the model needs really to be more efficient. Just now we heard from a representative from a small island talking about 30 to 36 months. This is not very different, actually, from what was announced by the president of the World Bank in Marrakesh when he said it takes 27 months for a dollar to get out from the door of the World Bank. This is not really efficiency. And when it comes to adaptation needs and mitigation needs, accelerated work is very much required. And that gets me into the final point, which is basically related to making funding more affordable, and perhaps in the model of funding we can use part of the $100 billion now and its multiples in the future in order to reduce the cost of finance for developing economies and emerging markets. So there is a very big agenda at the global level, at the regional level. I'm just heading now to opening remarks for a session on regional platforms, creating pipeline of bankable, investable projects through you all. If someone told you that developing economies and emerging markets do not have bankable or investable projects, they are simply wrong. We have 408 answers for that, from small enterprises to mega projects in different stages of development. What they need is basically the attention by those who have the funds in a world that is full of many opportunities and variety of risks. And then it's all about the local impact. And again, we have an initiative at experimental level in my home country, Egypt, on green smart project that could be replicated elsewhere. Having said that, we hope to focus this day not just in identifying the gaps, but how can we close these gaps by initiatives, by partnerships, by coalitions, by de-risking. All the best. Thank you so much.